What could be more motivating than a glass of Tropicana orange juice in the morning? Achieving your goals, making money, de-stressing? Okay, maybe they're not as good as orange juice, but they are still pretty nice. Welcome to the Orange Juice Podcast, where you'll get motivating and action-provoking content without all the pulp. Your host, me, Reggie Davis, brings orange juice to inspire the world with stories and ideas, both personal and shared, to help you peel back your fears and squeeze out your best self. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Orange Juice Podcast with Reggie Davis. I'm Reggie Davis and thank you so much for coming. This will be a very unique podcast in the motivation category. We're going to be an interview show where we'll meet multiple fantastic guests with stories and answers to my questions that will all have the end goal of moving you to action. We're going to take a more conversational approach where we'll focus on different situations that I or my guests might have been going through. And really through those, I hope we'll be able to learn about what it takes to be great and achieve your dreams. So it's going to be a motivation show without the yelling and bad audio you might get from famous speeches. And you definitely won't really hear many generic Google article suggestions. Eating a balanced breakfast really could solve a lot of problems, but that's not what we're going to focus on here. I couldn't really start a new podcast without acknowledging my old one. My old podcast was very near and dear to my heart, the Anything, Everything, and Nothing podcast, for those of you who didn't hear of it. I don't know if it's gone forever, but I do know why it stopped. Without a plan for success, it's very hard to reach success. And I think it was fun, and there was a lot of small victories. We had 50 live viewers one time while we were streaming, over 200 total plays across 8 episodes, positive feedback more than once, so definitely can say I'm happy about what we achieved there. Still, the podcast did end abruptly, and with us not all continuing it, life happened. But being here today is a testament to the fact that if you do fail, you got to get up and go at it again, especially if it's something you're passionate about. One person I listened to, Inky Johnson, he says, if you didn't get the results you thought you would get, would you still continue to work with the same level of effort that with which you started it? And I did think that my podcast would blow up. And it didn't. But I'm here trying again. So I will today, September 1st, as I record this. I'm going to get this started and we're going to get to 1 million followers. And I do believe a lot of people will be motivated as a result. So the Orange Juice Podcast. First and foremost, in case you're wondering, yes, I am actually drinking it today. Even though, to be quite honest with you, I really don't buy orange juice anymore because I really am addicted. I was known as the guy in college to go to the campus center, go get a liter of orange juice, and I'm done it in like less than an hour. I had a problem. I would finish them in an ungodly amount of time. And while I was thinking about what I wanted for this podcast, I was thinking about, okay, like I really like motivation and entrepreneurship, and somehow orange juice comes to my mind, which ties well to the morning and it's like morning motivation, so orange juice. I thought that's where the idea came from. But why is motivation an important topic for me? There's definitely a big story, and I do want to tell that to you guys on the podcast today. Okay, so our story for me starts in spring of 2020. Pandemic is just about to start. I'm working for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Been there for 2.5 years. In the midst of my 3rd promotion at the time, so that's why I'm in car sales, and things were going pretty good. Then everything kind of changed with the pandemic, because believe it or not, when the world is ending, people are not too focused on buying cars. There's a lot of uncertainty for me at this point because I know that I want to start a business anyway, and the job isn't going so well here. I had just gotten furloughed. And so I started looking for jobs. Ended up finding a home remodeling company, which I'm thinking is about to be a great job for me. Sales, working from home, so I'm not, in the mix of things outside. It seemed perfect. And when I started the job, I realized very soon that I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Worst job I've ever done in my life. For 8 hours a day, supposed to be making 80 to 100 plus calls a day. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. But I was not going to be the guy who didn't have a job. That was never going to be my story. And I just am really firm on the belief that you got to do something. If you're going to be at McDonald's, if you're going to be at, You're just not going to be unemployed. That's not going to be me. So I stayed there for 8 months. I looked for other jobs. I thought about businesses. I was working on a podcast. I did a lot. And eventually it got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm waking up every day and I'm so unfulfilled. And if I keep doing this for the rest of my life, I will lose my mind. I've already had thoughts about businesses and stuff in the past. But at this point, it was like, I'm going to have to do something that has never been done before, or I don't know what. And so I started thinking about the things that I was already doing. In my spare time, I really like going on Craigslist, buying and selling things like phones, stuff like that. I kind of just kept thinking about stuff like that. And then somehow the idea where a moving company came to my mind, and it's like, okay, wow, I could be a moving company who buys and sells items. So it's putting my own spin on that. Whatever the case, I decided to start Box and Barter in February. I got my first call for a job in March. And when I got my first call for a job, I was like, I got my first call for a job in March. And when I got that first call, I was so nervous. I was so unprepared. I went over there with no clue of how the moving game worked and what it really took to be a successful mover, but I did it. And you know, it's funny, Les Brown, a great speaker if you don't know him, says that anything worth doing is worth doing badly, at least until you can do it right. And so that's what I did. I went over there and I quoted her, I believe, $200 for a move that right now wouldn't have cost less than $2,000. But whatever the case, in that weekend that I was there, ended up being there for 18 hours. I made more that week. I made more from that than what I made from working that week. And for me, that was like, okay, I have something here. I ended up quitting my job about 2 or 3 weeks later when I got 2 calls in the same day. Quitting my job same day. And later that year, I go on to finishing my first year ever making 6 figures, which I never would have made at either of the 2 jobs I was at least not for another 5-10 years. And so what I really learned from that is that I had the opportunity to control my future. Like, I've been passed on promotions before. I've been passed on different opportunities. People didn't hire me for the job, even though I know I was the best candidate. People said, oh yeah, well, the only way to get that is for you to wait X amount of time. Like, yeah, you can make 100,000, or yeah, you can make this money. You just got to wait 5-10 years. You just got to put the work in. The craziest part about it all is all the things that I've learned from just getting on the other side of it, from just doing it. It's what I'm going to advise for everyone listening to me now. If you never listen to another episode of the Orange Juice Podcast, if you don't make it to episode 2, I will. But if you don't, I want you to know that money's out there. Your dreams are possible. 9 times out of 10, every obstacle that you can foresee is like up here. I'm pointing to your head if you aren't watching. So it's all in your mind. It's possible. You can do it. You can literally achieve anything that you want to achieve. You have to believe it's possible, and you have to go out and get it in whatever way it takes. Since then, I've done so many crazy things with my business. Not only have I bought my own truck, but I've traveled all over the country from, we've been to Florida just last month, twice now, Colorado, which is a 27-hour drive one way from New Jersey, Tennessee. I have so many crazy stories from my business. And in the end, I've pushed myself so hard. And I've had some really bad days with it, but nothing will ever compare to not having to work for someone, to not have to be in a position where I'm doing something that I don't want to do because I feel like I have to. And it's very common amongst my friends or many people who are around me where I saw them that they were at jobs that they didn't love and they didn't expect to be there, especially when we were talking about the future. But they were doing what they had to do because they didn't want to stop working either. I've seen some of those friends of mine start businesses of their own or leave their jobs also. And I've seen so many things kind of happen in fruition from that. And what I really hope to experience in this podcast is sharing a wealth of knowledge that brings people closer to that, no matter what that looks like. Maybe you really do love your job, but you want to start something else on the side, or maybe you don't want to have a boss like I didn't, Or maybe you want to make $1 million, and if you really think about it, what you're doing now is going to get you there. Who knows? At the end of the day, I'm still looking for a name for my audience. So if you guys have a suggestion. But anyways, Juice Gang? No. Okay, so I want to build a community of people who are not afraid to go out and get it, no matter what that means for themselves. And for us all to stay motivated, keep each other motivated so we can get the things that we want. To summarize, what my story will teach you is that there's really no reason for anyone to stay in a place that they don't want to. The craziest part about my business is that there is no skills that I've used in this business that I got from school. None. Everything that I do in my business now, from driving the trucks to moving furniture to organization, these are all things that I had the capability of doing 10 years ago. But the only difference was at one point I believed I could. Being a professional, being kind, and just putting in some work and going to YouTube University, really all it takes. A lot of you guys have already been on the edge of your seat, or however you want to put it, thinking about what you want to do. Go and do it. And we'll have plenty of time to talk about those things. But for now, thank you guys again for tuning into my first episode. I hope you kind of get a feel of what we're going to experience here. I have a lot of exciting episodes planned for you, so please do me a big favor. If you haven't already, subscribe to my podcast. Download it, follow us on social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you can find us on, we're there. All of them will have different links. And please, leave a review. Apple boosts people to the top with reviews, so review me. And also in that review, if you could, let me know what's a good name for the Orange Juice Crew. Still not it, but let me know. Looking forward to hear it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.